What's up, everyone? I hope you all had a great time celebrating the holidays with your families and ringing in the new year. To kick off 2017, I wanted to start a new regularly occurring series similar to that of Destiny Discussions. As you may have already guessed from the video's title, this series will be Star Wars Discussions and will be uploaded weekly every Friday, with only some exceptions to why a video isn't uploaded, those usually being in the event of a game review currently in progress. During certain weeks, instead of using a video game title, we may even wind up discussing other media elements of the Star Wars universe, such as movies, TV, or comics, and their impact on the franchise. In doing this, I hope to deliver content to you guys on this universe as a whole, and not from only one of the various media outputs available. Now, without any further delay, let's jump into this week's discussion of Star Wars Battlefront. Now, I remember watching the first teaser trailer for Battlefront feeling like a little kid in a candy store. Finally, another Battlefront is on its way, and it was hard to not be awestruck at the notion, with Battlefield's DICE at the helm, using their flagship Frostbite engine, and after waiting so long for a sequel to this franchise, dreaming of massive maps with the air-to-ground combat we were all familiar with in the original Battlefront title, and a feature that DICE themselves have grown to be recognized for in their Battlefield series. All I could imagine were the mechanics they'd be able to create and expand upon with the advancements in technology since Battlefront 2's release in 2005, as well as being equipped with the knowledge of mods that have come out since then on PC, which have expanded the game to great length. Mechanics such as improved space battles, better hero battles, more in-depth classes, larger matches with more on-screen AI that are simultaneously better developed, as well as hopefully finally bringing the feature of being able to take the battle to space from the ground seamlessly. In doing this, I left very little room for DICE to have the freedom on their vision for the franchise, which made it very difficult to be left at anything less than disappointed. That being said, we can't ignore the fact that DICE, in their vision, have seriously watered down the Battlefront experience that we have grown attached to in the removal or severe changes of features such as no galactic conquest, no classes, no space battles at launch, no single player campaign, and the vehicles as well as heroes are only available through pickups found on the map. This caused this new title to feel more or less like Star Wars Battlefront Arcade Edition. Star cards were a useless addition in the mere fact that they are little more than just two pieces of equipment you are bringing to the battlefield and an ability that will provide a brief buff to your character, depending on what you've chosen. Another misstep was in having developer time taken away to give players a diorama mode, which would have been a neat addition to a complete Battlefront experience, but when handed with a game that feels so underdeveloped, you couldn't help but wonder if the resources that went into creating it would have been better spent on giving fans more of what they were expecting to begin with. Another interesting comparison was the lack of multiplayer maps that shipped with the game at launch when compared to what was available for both previous titles and their respective launches. It's fair to say that in using a demanding engine such as Frostbite, that the ability to develop the same amount of maps would have been very difficult. But was it too much to ask to have at least nearly half? In the previous titles, our battles literally felt like they were waged throughout the Star Wars galaxy, be it on Naboo, Yavin, Mos Eisley, Jabba's Palace, Cloud City, Tantive 4, Polis Massa, and those are just from the Galactic Civil War and not even scratching the surface. Whereas in this title though, none of those were present, save for a couple that came out in DLCs later. Keeping in mind that this is a reboot of the franchise and not a sequel in any way, DICE still failed to deliver on key components of what made the franchise so successful in the past. By acknowledging that it is a reboot of the franchise, they have admitted that it is still part of what was done, and by gutting these components, left themselves very little room to succeed with such a dedicated fan base. Now, it is pleasing to know, however, that the content that has launched after the initial release, most notably being Death Star and their newest one, Rogue One Scarif, gave fans a glimmer of hope that DICE is listening by bringing us moments that even the original two games weren't capable of doing, using uniquely scripted game modes based off of events from the original trilogy and their new direct prequel. In doing so, a lot of the numerous minor issues that plagued Battlefront at launch are now far fewer and seemingly waiting with the larger issues for the sequel to put those problems to rest. These game modes feature you being put on Cloud City, where you're trying to escape the Imperials by blowing up gas generators, powering their tractor beams, or at the Death Star, where you are tasked with fighting through an Imperial blockade to rescue our old friend R2-D2 and ultimately live out your childhood dreams of being in that trench and destroying the Death Star yourself. And finally, you're fighting on the beaches of Scarif to desperately try and relay the Death Star plans in hopes you will be successful in getting them off the planet and starting the events of A New Hope. With all of this said, I can only hope that DICE takes the successes of its post-launch DLCs and finds a way to implement them in the sequel and expand upon them. But more importantly, that they are truly listening to the community on what we expect from a Battlefront title and will hopefully add many of those key features into the next title to come. Now, don't get me wrong, having fresh perspective is great and can add amazing gameplay not previously thought of before, and DICE has shown this off with their DLCs. But if it comes at the cost of gutting what a game, or better still, an entire franchise has at its core and uses towards its foundation, then the cost is not worth the developer's time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the content, and be sure to check out the other videos if you haven't already. This is Crafty signing off. May the Force be with you, and Happy New Year. Let's make this one amazing.